trapped 7 miles underwater, with a deadly creature lurking and no way out. Can the survivors escape? In today's breakdown of Underwater, we dive into a heart-pounding race for survival in the ocean's depths. Let's see what happens when humans face the ultimate terror beneath the sea. A woman, Nora Price, suddenly heard a strange sound in the 10,000-meter-deep oil well, so she put on her coat and went to check it out. But as soon as she came to the corridor, she immediately stopped and looked up. Suddenly, a drop of seawater fell from the top of her head. Nora felt strange for a moment, but she hadn't reacted yet. Suddenly, she didn't have time to hesitate. She quickly knocked on her colleagues' rooms in the process of escaping. Let them hurry to the isolation room and hide. It turned out to be the pressure of the oil well. The structure was completely damaged. This led to water leakage in the warehouse. But it's midnight now. Everyone is sleeping. It's impossible to escape in time. In an instant, there was a fierce explosion in the entire oil well. In the end, only Nora and Liam Smith came to the isolation room in time. It was too late when everyone woke up. Soon, the door of the isolation room was closed. Due to the excessive pressure of the seawater outside, even the isolation room was affected. A shockwave rolled in for a moment. In less than a minute, the two people woke up. Then they quickly contacted the headquarters, hoping to get help. But the helpless thing is that the signal at this moment has been terminated. No matter how Nora called, there was no response. The most important thing now is to get out of here first. The spare lifeboat became their last hope. Without hesitation, the two people rushed to the next stop. Just as they were walking forward, they accidentally found a wounded colleague. From his words, there was a lifeboat at the next stop. The three people crawled in a narrow space with the hope of escape. Soon after, they finally arrived at the stop. What made people feel relieved was that the captain of the oil well, Captain Lucian, was still alive. But the lifeboat was empty. It turned out that Captain Lucian had just sent the first group of wounded to the sea. To prevent survivors in the warehouse, he stayed with several colleagues. He simply understood the situation of the oil well. He found that the current oil well was in danger. They will likely be buried under the sea before they come to the rescue. To ensure the safety of several people, Captain Lucian decided to leave here and go to the next stop to find the lifeboat. At first, they suspected that the earthquake caused the leak of pressure leak, but they heard a strange roar from the recorder. No one knew what happened at sea. In no time, several people immediately put on waterproof equipment. They took the pressure gun and jumped into the elevator that was submerged in the sea. They didn't come to the bottom of the sea for a while. But when they opened the lifeboat, there was a sudden crack in the colleague's helmet. Then, as soon as the door opened, a strong water pressure produced an impact. In the next second, it was crushed into pieces. After calming down their inner sadness, they continued to take the lifeboat downstream. But what they didn't know was that what was waiting for them next was a greater crisis. The diver found a strange creature 20,000 meters below sea level. It looked like an octopus, and its body was full of tentacles. Nora was afraid, so she picked it up and pinched it. But suddenly, everyone was shocked. It turned out that the monster that had been fished up was still alive. The teammates began to wonder how it survived such a deep part of the sea. What's more, this creature looked strange. The slime on its body was fishy and smelly. Because it had been living at the bottom of the sea for a long time, its eyesight had completely deteriorated. They only relied on the touch of their body to sense the prey around them. When a few people were about to study this new species that they had never seen before, the whole lifeboat suddenly ran out of power. A strange sound was heard by everyone, then followed by a violent shaking. It seemed like something was hitting the submarine. This scene completely scared everyone. They all looked at the unknown creature that had been caught. They didn't have time to think about it. Suddenly, as the shaking became more and more intense, the submarine instantly broke away from the track. The next second, it fell directly into the deepest part of the sea. The sudden shockwave destroyed the shipwreck in an instant. Soon, there was a lot of water in it. A few people quickly put on their helmets. After landing, they quickly evacuated. Then they followed the channel to the next stop. Fortunately, the seawater had not been submerged here yet, so they could only take the train to the final stop. But on the way, they kept hearing that strange sound again. Only then did a few people find out that the creature had been following them. But for now, they can't do anything about it. They can only think of a way to get to the final stop, see if anyone is still alive there. But what they didn't expect was that half of them had just left. One of the teammates was pulled by a strange force. A few people rushed to the rescue. Both sides immediately stretched out their arms. The submersible of one of the teammates was no longer able to support itself. The next second, it was divided directly into two sections. There was no time to be sad. The remaining few people could only continue to move forward. Fortunately, the distance was not far from the middle of the battle. When they came to the cabin, they found that there was no one there. Then Captain Lucian tried to contact the headquarters, but he didn't hear any response. This was a surprising discovery for the team. This point of battle has begun to be extremely dangerous. Soon, they will not be able to bear the pressure to pour the seawater. With no choice, they can only allocate good oxygen to continue moving forward. Then, everyone came to the bottom of the dark sea. Nora felt something behind her. But when she turned around to check, she didn't find any abnormality. Then she continued to move forward with fear, but at this time, an animal that looked like an octopus quickly flashed by a few people. After Captain Lucian saw it, he immediately ordered to turn off the lights and open the infrared to communicate. Suddenly, that figure appeared again. He directly dragged one of his teammates into the cave. A few people rushed there quickly and saved him from the monster's mouth. However, he reappeared the next second. When he ran away, he pulled a wire. Coincidentally, he took Nora out. Captain Lucian reacted first and brought his teammates to save him. Fortunately, Nora was moved to the obstacle in time to block it. She grabbed the edge of the shipwreck tightly and didn't let herself be dragged away by the monster. However, unexpectedly, the monster returned. He gradually approached Nora. The next second, at this time, Captain Lucian also rushed over. He used a mechanical arm to hit the monster with all his might. Suddenly, he left quickly. Coincidentally, he pulled the wire again and took Captain Lucian away. At a critical moment, Nora grabbed the other end tightly. The two were instantly suspended at the bottom of the sea. Captain Lucian knew that he could not escape, so he loosened the wire. After falling, he immediately started the detonator. The next second, when Nora woke up, she found that she had lost contact with the other teammates. She had no choice but to move forward alone. Coincidentally, she saw an abandoned observation station not far away, so she started running over there. Nora found an observation station 20,000 meters below sea level. However, there was no one inside. She kept trying to contact the missing teammates with the radio, but she didn't get any response. When she thought of the terrible creature outside, Nora's heart was upset. At this time, she found that the oxygen here was scarce and could not be kept for a long time. She had to find her teammates as soon as possible to go to the terminal station. Then she put on a diving suit and went outside again. At this time, the voice of her teammates came from the helmet. Following the direction of the signal, she still found her teammates. Although her teammates were injured, they were fine. The three continued to walk forward. Soon they saw the terminal station, but when they walked in, they found a terrible conspiracy. At the entrance of the shipwreck, there was a lot of stuff hanging. When she looked closely, she found that it was the previous monster. They were hanging in the air, not moving. It seemed to be sleeping in the east. Faced with the danger in front of her, a few people still walked in with their heads held high to escape. To prevent these monsters from waking up, they were careful with every step they took. They thought they could pass smoothly, but there was still an accident. At this time, Nora's diving suit issued an alarm. A monster nearby suddenly woke up. Then she struggled hard, but was still swallowed by the monster. In a panic, Nora hurriedly pulled out a pressure gun. A shot was fired at the monster's brain. This is how she escaped from the monster's mouth. But the gunshot woke up more sleeping monsters. She quickly stopped walking and carefully observed the monsters on her head. What was strange was that these monsters seemed to be half blind and did not attack her. At this time, a scream was heard from a distance. Then the blind monsters were all sucked in by a big mouth. In a trance, Nora was in place. I don't know what happened just now. So she picked up the signal gun and fired a shot at the top of her head. A huge monster suddenly appeared in the air. Then she opened her mouth and slowly looked up at her. In no time, Nora hurriedly turned around and ran in the direction of the base. At the same time, the monster came in and she broke through the tight control cabin. An explosion caused a shockwave at the bottom of the sea, and Nora was rolled out of the 100-meter opening. Fortunately, her teammates arrived in time. The three of them escaped into the final battle together. The monster was getting closer and closer to them. The cabin was also beginning to be unable to bear the pressure, and she was stuck in the sea. A few people dragged her to a heavy submarine and hurried in the direction of the lifeboat. But what they didn't expect was that there was only one lifeboat that could run normally. At this time, the monster was also in front of them. She had no choice but to send the two people into the lifeboat first. She chose to stay. In no time, seeing that the lifeboat was successfully launched, Nora also let go. Then she came to the control room. Looking at the monsters that rushed in at any time, she took the courage to decide to detonate here and die with the monsters. She turned off the cooling system in the cabin first, and then accelerated the machine's operation. As the alarm sounded, the whole final battle generated a strong, high temperature.